Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to yet another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro. My guest today is Michael Onyango, a seasoned telecommunications professional working in the industry for many, many years. Michael is somebody I've known for the last few years, and over the years, I've been able to engage with him on a variety of topics in this space. And Michael today is going to share with us his incredible journey, where he started off initially as a telecommunications engineer and doing a degree in that space, moving into physics, and now all the way into the area of 5G, working for a very interesting company called Baicells Technologies. Michael is heavily responsible for some of these activities around popularizing and getting various mobile operators to adopt 5G, and also working extensively in the space of IoT or the Internet of Things. So join me as we welcome Michael Onyango to join us on this conversation. Karibu sana, Michael.
Thank you very much, Moses.
Yeah.
That feels really empowering, the introduction.
Well, you are the deal. You are the real deal. And somebody I've admired for a long time from a distance. You're doing incredible stuff. And I really want to unpack this story about who is Michael, where does Michael come from, where does this passion from telecommunications come from. But let's start from the early days, the formative years, growing up, starting out in life. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and sort of where all this begins.
All right, yeah. So thank you very much. And it's indeed a pleasure for me to be in this session with you. Yeah, so about myself, I come from Kisumu. So I was born in Aga Khan Hospital,
nice.
to be precise, and mostly grew up in Muhoroni, which is also
the sugar area.
Yes. Yeah, so most of my early days were really in the sugar plantations.
So you'd call that your
sugar
shags?
estates. Yeah, that is also my shags.
Okay.
That's where I grew up, and that is also where my village or kind of my shags is. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so my parents, my father worked for Muhoroni Sugar, and my mom was a teacher.
Okay.
So both are now retired.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're also there in Muhoroni.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, so I went to school in Muhoroni. Yeah, the school appropriately called Muhoroni Success.
Okay.
And you have a lot of very good memories and experiences from my time there.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So growing up, then what happens? You do your primary and secondary education there?
Yeah, so I did my primary in Muhoroni and indeed had some success. And for high school, I went to Mangu High School.
Mangu, nice.
Yeah, which is, as you know, in Thika. And so for 4 years, I was at Mangu High School. And I think I met a lot of people, a lot of boys that are my friends to date. And also a passion that I developed while at Mangu is that I learned to play rugby, which became an obsession for the next 20
I was also a rugby
so
guy.
years. Really?
Which position were you in?
Now I was playing the prop.
You're a prop?
Yeah, I was a prop.
I was a
number
prop
one.
too. Prop and flanker. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
the positions I used to play. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so for me, I played prop, and that was it.
Okay, so you're in the forwards, huh?
Yeah, I was in the
fantastic.
forwards, right in the thick of things.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
And somewhere in there, did some computer things start to happen? Some telecommunications desires start to become apparent?
Yes. That was in the 1990s. Yeah, the late 90s.
Okay.
So that was the time when there was this hype about Bill Gates and Microsoft.
And Windows and all that.
Yeah, Windows and becoming the richest man in the world.
Yes.
And, my interaction with computers did not really start early. So
yes.
My first computer that I handled, I was already in the second or third form in high school. So I saw that in the school library, but I found it really quite a profound tool. And I wanted to learn more about it.
Okay.
And that is how my interest in computers started.
Did you start playing with the computers just to do stuff? Were you coding? What exactly were you doing with them?
No, to be honest, there wasn't much time.
You're busy doing the formal studies.
Just to see it.
Yeah.
And you were told, this is the monitor, this is they used to call the entire box the CPU. And that was it. So the keyboard and the programs are loaded this way. This is a floppy disk. And this is the CD, CD-ROM.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was really what my interaction was limited to.
At that point?
Yeah, at that point. But I had the curiosity in that I wanted to learn more about the machine and the technology. and see what more we can do with it. So that is how the interest started. And when I finished high school in KCSE, and those days you had the 2-year gap.
Before you went in,
Yes.
Yes.
So while I was home, there was also the time when HP introduced the laptop. And they would advertise their laptops in the newspaper, and just looking at it was something that excited me, tremendously. Yeah, and so I would say that when I finished high school, my intention at the time, I wanted to go to University of Nairobi to do computer science, but more importantly, to play rugby for main machine. Yes, because it was really my passion.
Wow.
And well, it so happened that when the invitation to go to campus came, it came from KU and not Nairobi. So I landed in KU, and that's when I started doing the telecommunication and information technology. It was only in the second year of implementation. The first cohort was in second year, and we were joining as the second group. And they really hyped the
course, huh?
Yeah, the course.
The program, yes.
Yeah, so I fell into it, and that's how it went.
So tell me something. So you've applied for computer science. There's obviously a desire to do this. But more importantly, at KU as opposed to University of Nairobi, those 2 years between high school and university, did anything happen in there that sort of galvanized your intent or your appetite to pursue a career in this space?
No, 2 years you go home and that's it, and wait for your turn to go to college.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was home in Muhoroni. There was no rugby club in Muhoroni.
Oh,
so,
wow. Rugby was really a focal point, yeah?
Yeah, that was my obsession.
Wow.
Yeah, so unfortunately 2 years I was there, and what I would do mostly is I was home and I would read and get to follow the newspaper, read what was the content. I would follow the news. So there was a lot happening during that time. There was also the first 3G auctions.
Yes.
On Spectrum auctions. So I was watching there was this German TV, I think it was the Deutsche Welle.
Yes.
Deutsche Welle TV, and there was the finance minister very excited because they had auctioned the 3G spectrum for record fees. And
to Safaricom, yeah?
No, that was in Germany.
Oh,
so
Germany
I think
at the time, yes.
One of the German companies.
I see. So this was interesting for you.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch in the news, and it piqued my curiosity on the evolution of the communication industry. Because while I was interested in computers, but I also had an interest in the internet. And the internet relies on the telecommunication backbone. So naturally, I wanted to know more on how the whole ecosystem, works, and what I could learn about it.
So you're actually interested in the infrastructure side, the way the network worked that underpinned the internet itself.
Yes. So because internet is something we would simply. No, there wasn't much internet proliferation back then. Really, there was no internet in Muarani.
Wow, this was Shags proper.
Yes, there was none. And I think even in Nairobi, it was just a few people.
It was limited, yeah.
Even those with email addresses were countable. So it was more a curiosity that I was trying to satisfy. But when the time came, I was hoping that I would have an opportunity to learn more.
Okay.
Yes.
So you finished your first degree, obviously at KU.
Yes.
And then now came the second degree, which you did in physics, if I understand you correctly, your master's. Or did you work for a period of time before you did the master's?
Well, I did work for a number of years.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I graduated from KU, actually my intention was to go for master's almost immediately. And I had contacted a university in Sweden.
Okay.
North of Sweden. I didn't know that was the coldest part of Sweden.
Oh.
But still, I had contacted them, and we had started some conversation. But when they sent me a questionnaire or some guidance on what I need to know in order to have the best experience in that program, I looked at the list and I saw, oh man, I am so green. Yeah, so what I needed to know and the gap between that and what I actually knew or felt comfortable that I knew was so wide that I made the decision to first get embedded into the industry, work in Kenya, learn a little more. Then once I was comfortable, that's when I would seek to enhance my academic qualifications. So then there was the company called Kenya Data Networks.
Yes, KDN.
KDN
Yes,
at the time,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
So the CEO at that time was the late Kai Wolf.
I remember him well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I did is I approached him and I told him what I wanted to do. And his feeling was different. He said, actually at KDN, we don't really need all that technological research. What we need is research on the market, business, customer behavior. If you are doing that, we would be very excited. But what you are doing is not something that telecom companies, especially a service provider like ours, does. But nevertheless, he said it's okay. He referred me to Mr. David Owino. You know David Owino?
I worked with David at Africa Online, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so David Owino then called me and I met him at his office. And I was lucky that I was in the right place at the right time, I would say. Because just at that time, they were looking to expand their rollout teams.
Yes.
So just when they had decided that they need to recruit more support or rollout engineers, because at the time they had just one person.
Yes.
I think it was Mr. Matayo, who was running all the sites. So every single thing was on him. And I believe he was now too busy, so they needed people to work under his team to support him. So a very short conversation with David Owino, and he said, okay, come, you start work now.
Wow, pretty much immediately.
Yes.
Okay.
So I didn't even go home. I immediately went to sit in the office and start to learn how things worked. And the following day, I was going with Matayo to site.
To see how things are happening on the ground.
Yes. And so that was exciting for a day, because by the following day, I realized that I actually have a fear of heights. Yeah, so, his work meant that he needed to climb up the tower, install the antennas, very heavy, large antennas, pull them out, which I couldn't do. So I was pretty much useless to him.
Were these the WiMAX?
Yes.
The WiMAX networks, yeah?
Yeah.
I remember those, yeah.
Yeah, they had set up, they had the WiMAX. They also had the legacy broadband access.
This is the CD, what is it, CDMA? Sorry, not CDMA. What is it called? The copper one.
There was just something they called broadband wireless access.
Okay.
Yes,
I remember that.
Precursor to the WiMAX.
I remember those as well. Yes. So, but it didn't support as fast the bandwidth you had on WiMAX, huh?
Yes.
So,
so they were quite revolutionary. They actually pioneered WiMAX in Kenya, I believe.
Yeah, I remember it was a big deal at the time because, but of course, WiMAX was almost like a transitional technology at the time before fiber became widespread, right?
Yes, that was their intention, because they had rolled out this wireless network via WiMAX and the other BWS, and a lot of ISPs were depending on that.
Yes, I remember.
Connect, but they had a plan to roll out fiber, and I think around the same time that I came in was when they had they just signed a contract with one of the major vendors to roll out the fiber. And so while I realized, I am pretty much useless
in the field
in the job that you gave me, so I need to do something else. So at KDN at the time, it was open doors. Everyone's door was open. You could walk in and talk to them. So I went to see Kai Wolf again. Yeah, and I told him, man, you have this fiber project going. Can I be involved? And, it took him a second or two, and he said, yeah, okay, no problem.
Wonderful, huh?
Yeah, man, he was a wonderful man.
He was a really good guy, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he did that, and he even joked that, now there's no danger of you falling from the tower. Now you're underground.
Down, Okay.
Yeah, so, and that was it. So from an intern, really, I was now the main person for KDN who was working with the contractors. Nobody else, incidentally.
And you're shadowing them as they do their thing, what's going on.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they did need someone from KDN to shadow the contractors. So that's what I did. And it was a good
they're doing the metro, yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
And that was the first metro fiber in Kenya, I believe.
So this is now linking up predominantly key locations across the city, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All the key buildings in town, we had to go into each and every one of them and talk to the caretakers and get permission to, install our equipment there, to dig around them. We dug up the entire town
I
and,
remember.
caused so much disruption. It was quite revolutionary what KDN managed to achieve.
I remember, yeah.
Because in just a few months, we had dug up the entire CBD all the way to Yaya Center and Westlands and many other areas, installed the fiber, connected, and shortly, many people even forgot what the experience was before fiber.
Yeah, I remember when fiber became a thing. It was kind of interesting because until that point, I think we were all hooked on the idea of WiMAX.
Yes.
And the other wireless technologies. Like I remember when I was working at AFCON 9, we had a proprietary wireless technology that was being used across the major
Yes.
cities. I'm just forgetting the name right now. But it's interesting the way those things came and they almost left as soon as they came
Yes.
to go now into fiber. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
And before long, after KDN, now we had almost everybody else doing fiber.
Exactly, which was
Yeah.
kind of funny because then you'd find the road then would be ripped up again.
Yes.
And they put
yes.
in their fiber. Another one comes, they rip up again, they put their fiber, which was very
Yeah.
disruptive. Eh?
Yeah, there was no sharing of infrastructure those days.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to do their own.
Proprietary, yeah.
Yes.
So now you're probably the guy who knows the most about the deployment of these fiber networks across KDN, right?
I don't know.
Well,
I
you're one of
wouldn't-
the guys on
at
the
the
ground.
time. At the time, yes.
Yeah.
At the time, I knew each and every meter of fiber that they had deployed. I knew where the contractor had not dug to the required depth, but backfilled,
Oh.
because some areas were rocky.
So breaking in was a challenge, yeah?
Yeah, they couldn't.
Wow.
So they just
You circumvent, you just...
just laid it and covered it and moved on.
It's a kujaribu too.
Yeah, roll it out and enable
Yeah.
the service.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
what happens now from that point onwards? What happens in the next steps for you?
Yeah, so I was at KDN for not very long actually, less than a year.
Oh, only?
Yeah, but a lot happened in that 1 year.
Because you were in the thick of it, eh?
Yes. So there was so much going on.
Uh-huh.
But at the time, Huawei, they had been in the market for a while, but they had the plan to grow their team.
Mm-hmm.
And they needed somebody who had some background on fiber optics
Uh-huh.
and also radio access and microwave transmission.
Okay.
And I would say I was lucky
Yes.
that I believe I'm among based on my experience at KDN, I had all three.
Ah.
Yeah, so it was a very good conversation that I had with them. And before long, they invited me to crossover.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was it.
Nice.
So then I was at Huawei. And
Okay.
what I was doing then was network planning and design. And to support the pre-sales project. So before they bid or before they made their proposals to the customers, they needed somebody to give them the estimation on what the requirements in terms of materials and manpower would be.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I would do. So
Fantastic.
sometimes this entailed going to site for survey. Sometimes you had to go to the actual site. You had to survey the route. So my first project was in Tanzania. We went around the whole of Tanzania
Wow.
to survey a fiber route for one of the operators there. Yeah, so all the way from Dar es Salaam up to Tanga.
Wow.
Then went on to Mwanza and down to Dodoma. So I ended up knowing more of Tanzania than Kenya. I think I
Really?
traveled.
Wow. And that means you have to literally look at the entire route where
Yes.
this thing is going to go, yeah?
Yes, you have to drive through the
And
entire
you're
route.
surveying and you need to know where to get permissions and all
Yeah,
that. Eh?
you need to know the state of the road. You need to check the soil. How deep is it?
And then
You know.
accessibility, of course.
Yes, accessibility. You need to, if the digging will be along the roads, you need to know where there's a road, where there's a bridge, because how you handle the fiber underground versus how you handle it across a bridge. Those are two different approaches. So it's quite some detailed
tedious,
work.
huh?
Yeah, it is tedious. And you count, basically counting and counting the bridges, counting the meters.
You're documenting all this, huh? Okay,
yes.
wow.
So, and I don't know if there's a way, I don't know if that has been automated nowadays. I think you still have to do it that way.
Really, huh?
Yeah.
Because you have to see it with evidence. You have to see for yourself. This is what's here.
Yes.
So how are we going to get here? How are we going to put this thing here, right?
Yeah. This is where we are. That is where we need to go. And this is what exists between this point and...
I'm always fascinated when you look at the infrastructure side of telecommunications. We just open our phone and there's 5G or 4G.
Yes.
We just go online and Facebook works. But people don't understand their layers
of
things that make it possible.
Yes.
Not to mention the work that people like you are doing on the ground to make this possible.
Yes.
It's amazing, huh?
Yeah, there are lots of nameless people.
Heroes, actually,
hundreds of them.
That have built the foundations, right?
Yeah, that work to make this happen. And there are even more that even now are working to keep it running.
Wow.
Because, when the network goes down, you lose your head. So there is somebody who, the moment the network goes down, he has to ensure that
it comes back up as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
So you did this entire sort of survey and sort of did this route?
Yes, I did the route survey and did then the estimation on the materials required and prepared the quotation. You have to then, in terms of a bill of quantities, then submit that with some kind of price.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did that in Tanzania, then came back to Kenya. I did the same again in Djibouti.
Wow.
Yeah, I did.
So now you're traveling everywhere.
Yeah, it was quite exciting.
Yeah, awesome.
I was at the time I joined Huawei, I was 24. Just a year out of college.
Wow. So get this crazy experience.
It was wonderful. The first trip, I landed in Dar es Salaam and the driver came to pick me in this Land Cruiser. And I was sitting on the passenger side and cruising. And when he gets to the office, there are two Chinese guys and one Tanzanian guy. They're waiting for me to have a meeting.
Wow.
In order to
so you're a big man now.
Man, I felt like I was the man, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're going to Djibouti, TZ, then what happens next?
Yeah, so I worked there for just a little over 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I admired about Huawei, though, is that they were not shy to introduce their best technologies here. Yeah, that was 2005, those years, when generally Africa, most vendors would not consider that a key market.
So they bring the 2Gs instead of the latest stuff. And also those are the years that, if I'm not wrong, that the likes of Ericsson and Siemens were dominating in the telecommunication space for mobile operators, right?
Yes.
They were supplying most of the equipment, right?
That's right. Yeah, Huawei was still growing.
Early days for them,
especially in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, but they came in with their best technology. In fact, once I was in Congo, we were doing a survey in eastern side of DRC. And I was with this Chinese sales manager, tall guy. I can't remember his name though. And he told me that, my ambition or my dream is to be able to deploy in Congo the same quality and the same technologies and enable the same quality of service that I've been able to do in China.
Wow.
And that's when I learned that, that's a good passion to have. And I also built up the same passion that I want to be able to sell in Kenya the best. Yeah. So
no compromises, huh?
Yes. Don't sell the cheapest. Don't sell the legacy. Sell what is the best that you have.
And it's so funny that you say this, because I think if you look at even the aspirations of the modern Kenyan versus, let's say, the modern Chinese person, or perhaps an American or a Brit, they're the same. We want the same things. We want the same quality of technology. We want the same iPhone. We want the same.
We want good things. We like good things.
Yeah.
So we deserve good things.
Exactly. I like that.
Yeah. So that's what we do. So, so then from Huawei, I moved now to Alcatel-Lucent.
And what precipitated that move? Is it that they made an offer that was very compelling, or there was something that you felt they had that Huawei did not, perhaps? Yeah,
so it was kind of a career growth for me.
The role,
Yes, because now they wanted somebody with more responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was now responsible for a lot more concerning the pre-sales process. Now I would coordinate end to end, and I would lead virtual teams when doing the bidding projects.
I see.
Yeah, so I would coordinate the technical part, but I would also coordinate the legal, the operations.
More responsibility, I imagine.
Yes, and coordinate with the sales managers and also interact with the Alcatel-Lucent headquarters in Paris when there was need for certain, price optimization. I could ask for that to be done. Yeah, so generally it's just that I had more. I felt like I was a more trusted member of the team.
And more senior as well.
Yes, and more senior.
And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the days of Alcatel-Lucent, I remember, they had this amazing switches and things like this, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes.
That was what they were renowned for. That these super fast switches, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was their key product.
Yeah.
These optical switches and routers that they would deploy in the core of the networks. Yeah, so that though for me, I was selling the radio equipment.
Okay, so back to the 3Gs and the likes.
Yes.
Okay.
So actually, once I moved to Alcatel, then I focused on the wireless side.
Okay.
Yeah, so no more optical, no more transmission. I was now totally radio access.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, and that was the time of 2G and the
upgrades
first,
now, or 2.5.
2.5. There was 3G now, and towards the end of my time there was also 4G.
Okay. So you were there for a bit of time. If you saw all those transitions, right?
Yes. I was there for 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Yes. So by the time I was leaving, we were selling the first 4G networks in East Africa.
Wow.
Yeah. And
LTE. Yeah.
Yes. That time it was revolutionary technology.
No, I remember when 4G was coming, I mean, we all were like, how can this be faster than 3G? Because for many of us, 3G was already amazing.
Yeah, there was 2.5G edge.
And I remember we thought it was pretty good. Then 3G came and like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Yes. And then when they started talking about LTE, I remember there was a lot of conversations about the way it'll be too expensive. Does Africa need 4G? Remember those conversations about whether it was too early for Africa to have it? Do you remember that stuff?
Yes. And it is the same conversation, even 3G. The conversation was, does Africa need 3G?
Yeah.
But the service providers went ahead and deployed 3G. And when 3G was mature, now the conversation was, does Africa need 4G?
I know. And, I think that the people in certain markets were saying, should they be feeding their people first before looking for fast internet? Yeah. But I think what you forget is that when you have better and higher quality and more ubiquitous internet, it actually becomes a socioeconomic driver.
Yeah, maybe you're actually able to feed yourself better.
Because you have the internet and WhatsApps and everything. Yeah,
you have more opportunities, to participate in the digital economy and just sell your products.
Yeah. So now you do some time at Alcatel-Lucent. What happens next?
Yeah, so actually Alcatel, one important point is the CEO at the time. There was an Englishman, Tony Wood. So what we used to do is we would watch the product innovations. Then people used to wait for them to be deployed in US, in Europe, see how it's done there. Then we copy what they did there and sell here. And sometimes the gap between that would be 6 months, 1 year.
Oh, so it was a quick turnaround, eh?
No, that was long because what Tony Wood said, previously the thought was that the technology uptake in Africa would be 1 year or so behind what it was in the
Europe,
rich countries.
Wherever, yeah.
But he said, no, that is not the case. He said it is much shorter than that. It could be 1 month or even
the speed at which you bring it to this market as well.
Yes.
Wow.
So he would insist that any product that is available, you find a way to also sell it here. And we took that motivation and came up with a plan for the sale of 4G here. And I think within a year, we had made the sale.
Wow.
And deployed.
Of the latest tech
Yes,
at the time.
which would not have happened if we had waited.
So the leadership was very instrumental, saying that, look, why should we be doing, let's bring
Yes.
up the latest stuff now.
Yes, why should we sit back and wait for others to do it then?
Follow, copy,
follow.
Yeah.
We could do it fast and they could take the best practices from us. Why
Yeah.
should we wait for it to be done elsewhere?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was also something important, an important lesson that I learned during that time. Yeah, so from Alcatel-Lucent, then I moved on to Ericsson.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ericsson, I would say it was more or less the same kind of work because I was still focusing on wireless. I was also concerned mostly with the pre-sales part. And but the thing is that Ericsson had a well-oiled machine, I would say. Yeah.
The way they went about things.
Yes. They had the systems all in place.
But they were one of the originals. I mean, they
Yes.
were, with the whole mobile technology rollout, Sweden at that time, Ericsson,
Yeah.
they sort of had a legacy in that space that was very strong. Eh?
Yeah, like they owned the majority of the patents belonged to them. So they had it in check. And even concerning their business in Africa, when you joined there, you found that other people had already done the hard work. They had done all the pitches years ago. They had signed all the frame agreements. So, all you do is just sit down and work.
It's all ready to go. Huh?
Yes. So
Fantastic.
it was quite a good experience working there. Though what I did participate in a lot of very important or strategic projects. And also that was where I started working, till late in the night. Yeah, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. on a regular basis. But it was something that I wanted to prove to myself that, I could be a high performer in a company like Ericsson, which is so established. And I believe I did. I had developed some reputation of being able to go into any account that was experiencing any kind of confusion or problems, and I would be able to fix things.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also remember, you're working in an organization that already was known for excellence.
Yes.
And then you're sort of now elevating your performance, you're elevating yourself to a point where, I always think about careers in, technology and all that. And I find that long hours, excellence comes from hard work.
Yes.
There's no other way.
Yeah, people talk about working smart, and maybe it's possible, but
it takes time.
I think you have to work hard before you develop the smartness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you need to put in the hours.
Yeah.
And
so you do your stint at Ericsson. You're doing this high level stuff.
Yes.
And then what happens next?
Yeah. So from Ericsson, I moved now to Sandvine. So that was the first time that I moved now to a fully sales role. Because now they needed a sales manager for the region of East Africa.
What is Sandvine? If you can just elaborate a little bit about the Sandvine business.
Yeah, Sandvine, they were in a niche space in telecom, which is policy control. Yeah, so out of the whole telecom industry, they focused on that area. And they built a product which I would say was perfect. Yeah, but they were at the time selling exclusively to the tier 1.
Okay.
Yeah, service providers.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe some tier 2s, but their target was the tier 1s.
So those are Safaricoms and so forth.
Yes, that was the target.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that turned out to be one of the most difficult roles because in an industry where other vendors provide end-to-end service, we focus on a small section of it. And this niche that you support, the other vendors can also have products that compete with yours. So when a vendor that is doing end-to-end wants to deploy 200 sites for a customer that you are talking to, they can give this part for free. Or some things like that. Or
so you guys had to be super excellent at that one thing.
Yes, we had to be extremely good. And the product could compete. It was a good product.
Okay.
Yeah, though selling it needed much longer engagement cycles.
Maybe you can just elaborate about that. When you say policy, is it like a software-driven thing that is kind of managing certain policies on the network itself? Is that what it does?
Yeah, so what it does is, when you push the traffic through the network, and they had this system of theirs whereby they inspect every packet
Okay.
that is transmitted.
Okay.
So with their what they call the deep packet inspection.
Yes. I've heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah, each and every packet they're able to inspect what it is, who is the sender, who is the recipient, and what route is it taking. So using this knowledge, they are then able to employ certain policies towards the customer side. So this enables them to have more control on bandwidth utilization, for instance.
Okay.
They
Quality of service, so to
yes,
speak. Yeah.
quality of service. And they're even able to offer a lot of value-added services to the customers
I see.
based on this knowledge.
Because you have those insights now of exactly what's happening on the network.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so from this, they're also able to develop the analytics products. They were able to generate very beautiful dashboards on each and every subscriber on the network if you want.
What?
Yes.
So it's a very unique specialization then. Huh?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So you did some time at Sunvine, which is when I think you and I first became
Yeah,
in
that's
touch.
when we met, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so then from there, Sunvine, of course, was it was a small player in the industry, so they got taken over by some venture capital firm, and then this venture capital firm merged Sunvine with another company that they owned, which was also in that space.
Okay.
So the two companies became one.
Yeah, okay.
Still called Sunvine, but now owned by a different, a different owner.
Okay.
To say that. Yeah. So then the new owners had a different plan.
Okay.
They already had their existing business, and they were adding this to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I did then was to transition out of that role. I supported them with to transfer the new clients to the new management. Yeah, then I moved on. So from Sandvine, that's when I moved now to American Tower.
Okay, which is the tower business for
the tower
mobile networks, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Tell us about that,
Yeah, they had just come into Kenya a few months earlier.
They acquired an existing one, isn't it?
Yeah, they acquired the towers that belong to Telecom Kenya. Yeah, more than 700 of them.
These ones got privatized, I suppose, or they just bought the infrastructure, as it were.
They bought whatever, they bought the space. The tower business is interesting. The tower company does not even own the actual land on which the tower is
They lease the space.
Yeah, they lease the space.
Okay.
But they own the tower.
I see.
Yeah, so, and it's the same even with the MNOs, where they deploy their towers. They usually do not own that space, they lease. Yeah, so they took over the leases from Telecom Kenya and the tower in whatever state it was.
Did this have anything to do with Helios?
No, Helios was one of the owners of Telecom Kenya. I know Helios is a tower company also.
Yes, that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, so there usually is some confusion.
So these are two competing businesses, maybe?
Yeah, I am not even sure if the Helios that owns the tower is the same one that
I think it is. I think it could be, yeah.
So, but I think Helios Towers was not even in Kenya.
Okay. Maybe they came later, right?
They
never came in at all?
No.
Okay.
I think they're in Tanzania.
All right.
Yeah, but they never came to Kenya.
Okay.
But they owned the Telecom Kenya.
Okay, this is American Tower now. Okay.
Yes, so interesting though that they have their own tower co, but they sold the towers that they had. I thought they would have sold it to themselves if they were the same company.
Okay.
But I don't know, well, still. Nevertheless, what happened is that American Tower took over the towers and went about now managing that asset. And so I came in as an account manager, and I was to help to get business with one of the key customers in Kenya. And I believe that we did.
That one of the telcos?
Yes, one of the major telcos in Kenya.
Yeah.
So at the time, business was not growing as quickly as they wanted, I would presume.
So chances are you're the guy who knew the people within those organizations to make this happen.
No, I wouldn't say so. I think that maybe it was just the right time.
Yes.
You know, sometimes the business takes a while to mature. You know, they had just come in a few months ago, and they needed to settle in, you know, get their systems working, then get more interactions with the customers and get them to buy in.
Okay.
Yeah, so, well, I cannot say that I'm the one who turned around this particular account, but I could say that I did participate.
No, you came in and you made things happen. That
Yeah,
means
yeah.
you're the man, you know?
Yeah,
So you
yes.
come in, you help onboard this new account.
Yes, well, it was an existing account, but which was inherited from Telcom.
Oh, but you're able to kind of upsell them on
Yes,
on the
we were
same.
able to move from, you know, grow the business 5 times
Wow.
in 1 year.
And you say that so modestly, like to just.
Yeah, it was.
No, clearly it was a very big success.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's also the project by the CA, the
Communications
Universal
Authority.
Yes, the Communication Authority. This the Universal Service Fund.
Yes.
Where they deploy to these very rural areas.
The underserved areas of the country. Yes.
Yeah, so that was one project which we also participated.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
And I think ATC is one of the biggest players or the participants in that project.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, they do roll out majority of the sites. I don't know if that is, I don't know what happened in subsequent rounds, but yeah, for that time they did the most of the rollout.
Fantastic. So you stayed there for a few more years?
Yeah, I stayed there for, I think it's 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when I was now Baicells. They had been around since 2014, and very innovative products. And they had had much success in the US, in China, and they had over 500 customers in the US alone. They had network deployments in all the 5 continents, and they wanted now to increase their presence in Africa.
Okay. So they reached out to you.
Yeah, so they were expanding their team, and they invited me to join, and I was happy to join. I was excited, really, because they had products which I felt were exactly what we needed here.
How long have you been at Baicells now?
3 years.
3 years, huh?
Yeah, 3 years now, so going into my 4th year.
Okay. And what is it that you feel, you know, sort of the philosophy or the ethos of Baicells is that makes it truly unique?
Well, they say 2 things.
Yes.
Firstly, they say to connect the unconnected. And also we have another slogan, which is to do more with less. Yeah, so, and these are exactly what we need in this market. Yeah, we believe that our product, the economics of our product are such that the total cost of ownership to you as a service provider when you deploy Baicells is significantly lower than what you would invest in terms of capex and opex when you go with other vendors. And that we are not embarrassed to say that. That is something that almost every customer has proven by.
So you're market appropriate.
Yes, especially for this market, we have the right products and we have the right economics.
Okay.
That makes sense to them.
So I'm imagining at this point in time, you probably have quite a few 4G deployments. Maybe you're in the process of deploying 5G. What's that situation looking like at the moment?
Yeah, we do have 4G deployments in many countries in Africa, even here in Kenya. And you see, 5G is still early days, to be honest, especially in this region. So even in Kenya, it's only 2 operators that have rolled out on a scale that would be considered large.
Okay.
Yeah, so many others are intending to do trials or test the concept, prove the concept later in the year. Yeah, but we have the product, and when any service provider is ready to roll out 5G, Baicells should be your partner.
So tell us a little bit about the 3 or 4 things that you think are factors to the adoption of 5G by networks.
Yeah, so I'd mentioned that the real barrier is cost. The cost of deploying the 5G network. And there are, I think, 3 or 4 factors that contribute to that. Yeah, firstly, there is the underlying infrastructure that you need to set up in order to support your 5G base stations. You know, firstly, you might need more sites.
Okay.
Because depending on the frequency band in which you deploy, you need to upgrade the transmission, because now you have a site that is generating 10 gigabyte, Gbps.
Oh, yeah, because of the speeds, yeah?
So now you need to upgrade the transmission also.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the third point also is the spectrum. Now that's actually the second point, because what the frequencies that are available to you to deploy, you might need additional spectrum.
Okay.
And most of the regulatory jurisdictions, they consider the spectrum a very scarce resource. And they sell it at a very high price. So the cost of acquiring that spectrum alone is a huge barrier towards getting into the 5G space.
In fact, I've seen in other markets, what's happening is they've discontinued 3G so that they can use that spectrum for 5G. Is that correct?
Yes, they have. That's right. So what they used to have on 3G, some of the 3G bands have been discontinued.
Okay.
Then they have refarmed that in order to roll out into 5G.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the other point also is the cost of the devices.
Yeah, the handsets, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The cost of the handsets. The handset that is capable of 5G is many times the cost of one that is without 5G. And even if you are doing a fixed 5G network, the cost of the CPE, 5G CPE is more than double the cost.
That's the one that could be fixed to your building or to an
Yes.
office or something like that, yeah?
Yes.
Or even residential, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
The cost of that is much higher than the cost of the 4G. And also the cost of the 5G base station is significantly higher than 4G.
So it's not a simple upgrade. It's not as simple as just retrofitting a new receiver or something on the base station. You have to pretty much rebuild for 5G, right?
Yes, you have to, because not only are you going to make some upgrades on the transmission and on the base station and also build more sites, you also need to do some architecture, changes.
Oh.
The core network itself.
How it works, yeah?
Yes, how the core network works. There are some upgrades that need to be done. You see, the core network for 4G can be centralized in that you can have one packet core. But for 5G, where the sites are carrying very large traffics, you do not want to be transporting such large traffic to a central core.
I get you.
Yeah, so you need
So it's distribution, eh?
It's distributed and also deployed much closer to the site. So that's why they have this the feature that they call the mobile edge computing. So they have to extend the power of the core network closer to the edge of the network where the sites do exist. So that is really the barrier.
It's a completely different architecture then from 4G or 3G, yeah.
It's a rethink of how you want to offer the service.
Yeah.
Though on the air interface, you will see surprisingly that 4G and 5G are not very different apart from a few additional features. Yeah, so the definition of the modulation and coding schemes on 4G, the definition of the shared channels on 4G and 5G, the difference is not so much. But now the advantage 5G is that you have wider bandwidth in terms of spectrum. You have more, antenna. You use multiple antenna systems in order to send multiple streams of data. In this case, then increasing the throughput by the factor of the number of antennas. So you also need to do some modernization of the antennas when moving from 4G to 5G.
Okay.
Yeah. And, basically factors or activities of that manner.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you think is the way forward for 5G in Kenya, East Africa, being where you are actually at the front pushing the adoption of this technology with mobile networks and others. What are your thoughts around the way forward? The next 2 to 5 years, perhaps.
Well, it will happen because there are certain customers that we would best be served by 5G because of the enhanced throughput that you would enable, and also just the better experience. So there will be the 5G rollouts will continue, and so those that already have 5G will expand, and I believe that even the ones that do not have 5G will start to deploy in the coming year or two. Yeah, so the uptake will increase. I believe the cost of the equipment will drop, especially on the customer side. The cost of the handsets that support 5G will drop, and the cost of the 5G CPEs will also come down. And the cost of the 5G base station will also be lower, especially if you work with Baicells.
Okay.
Yes.
Particularly with Baicells.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around use cases, especially things like IoT and so forth? Because I feel like in a practical way, it's so new. I think in Kenya, we don't even have 1 million 5G users yet
Yes.
on the network. I think Safaricom's last numbers were something like 500,000 or so are now enabled on devices. What are your thoughts around the use cases? Because I think we've not even scratched the surface of what we can do with it yet, right?
Especially with regard to the industrial use cases, we are barely doing it.
So there's a long runway. I mean, another
Yeah.
5 years before we start to really see on the ground ways and means in which 5G is making things possible, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be able to predict, but I can tell for sure that the only 5G use case that we're offering now is the enhanced throughput. We can give you higher bandwidth, but there are many other use cases that are enabled by 5G, especially in the IoT space. So where there is taking advantage of the low latency that is enabled by 5G. So you mentioned the IoT. Even the IoT that is deployed now, it is mostly the IoT deployments here currently are things like the water meter somewhere,
Farming, I think farming as well.
farming or tracking
Yes,
of vehicles.
correct.
Yeah, position tracking. So these do not generate really large amounts of data. So they send small amounts of data which do not affect the network performance. But when you consider the other use cases of IT, if somebody has a CCTV camera and is continually monitoring perhaps an area,
A remote location or
yes,
something.
and streaming all that data to the database, or monitoring a machine with a camera and wanting to be able to detect any faults. So now these ones generate huge volumes of data. Even just a football match where every player has the tracker attached to the back of the shirt, and this is sending all kinds of performance metrics to a database, while you also having some video analytics. So this generates significant amounts of data, and this kind of data would require a 5G network to be able to transmit.
Okay.
Then also you do not, the models that are able to process this degree of data are usually, you need machine learning models in order to get the inferences from that.
Correct.
And machine learning requires very powerful machines, which are usually deployed in the cloud.
In fact, you're reminding me, because I was going to ask you about AI
Yeah.
and machine learning. I saw a recent report, I think it was NVIDIA are doing something, I think Vodacom in South Africa, where I think the network management is now being moved from humans. And they've purchased, I think, one of the sort of the computer systems that you can get from NVIDIA with the H100 chips to now deploy an AI model that allows you to optimize the network better. I don't know if that's something that you guys are also playing into with Baicells, things like that.
Yeah, so that is something to do with the network optimization. Yeah, which currently many do it manually.
Yes.
You have an optimization engineer who monitors the parameters and takes remedial action, which interestingly, self-optimizing networks was a 4G feature.
Already, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a feature that should have been available on 4G.
Okay.
Indeed, it was. Maybe not as widely deployed, but it's simply having the system that is able to learn the network behavior and what causes each KPI changes, and also is able to make decisions on what remedial action to take.
Okay.
Yeah, so that can be done even with our system with the right deployment. And but I also the way they're doing it at the NVIDIA is quite exciting.
No, it's really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I spent my whole Christmas doing, just the holidays, just learning everything I could about AI and how it works. And of course, NVIDIA is very much at the core of that with their the 800 chips, the GPUs that make it possible. So as we come to the end of our conversation, I think maybe I'd like to ask a couple of more questions. One is maybe understanding the way forward for Baicells in Africa, just in terms of, giving us any thoughts or pointers around propositions and things you're doing in the region and beyond. The second thing, which I think is so important that we didn't touch on, was maybe a little bit about your IIT experience in India. Very few people even get into those universities. I'm just curious if you want to share anything about that experience. I think it's fascinating that you actually went through that. I worked with another person many years ago had also been in an IIT, but I know that usually people who graduate from such places are generally excellent, and you've had that benefit. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that. And maybe the last thing, again, very briefly, we didn't talk much about your master's degree in physics, how that came about, So if you could just touch on those last three things, I think that would be a nice way to cap our conversation.
Okay, so I'll talk maybe firstly about the master's. Yeah, because I wanted to learn, at a fundamental level.
Yes.
Because all engineering is physics based, really. All these electronics, all these antennas, radio waves, it's all about electrodynamics and, just the interaction of the radio waves with the
environment.
Matter, the environment and all that. Yes, I wanted to learn how this works, and also be able to explain, to understand from first principles.
Okay, so this is more about foundational things that you wanted to grasp, which then would enhance your understanding of this space.
Yes, and really having gained this understanding, then I feel much more confident.
Okay.
While selling my product, because now I know it from a much deeper level.
Okay.
Than just the function and features, but even the actual electronics that gives rise to it.
I think that's apt because remember, I think our topic was really, from physics to 5G.
Yes.
Drawing that line across. Then the second thing was your IIT experience. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Yes, IIT actually is taking initiative to be able to reach students that are not in India. Because, India, getting into IIT is extremely competitive. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's...
Which is why I'm so impressed with what you accomplished.
It's actually more competitive to get into IIT than it is to get into Ivy League universities in the US. So they know, but they also wanted to extend the knowledge that they have to people who are not in India, but who are willing to learn. So while I actually joined IIT via an online course, so I was able to follow the lectures, and I was very impressed with the knowledge of the staff that was teaching.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and also it was surprisingly to me. I expected this was just a session whereby I would be sitting and listening to lecturers, and at the end of it, you get this certificate of participation. And but I was surprised by how
it was thorough,
intense and rigorous, especially with regard to mathematics. And
it was heavy,
yeah, it was much heavier than I expected.
And usually many of the graduates today are running some of the biggest companies. I think Satya Nadella, people like this are all IIT people. So clearly you keep good company.
Well, I try, but I wish to one day now be able to do the real course at IIT in India.
Fantastic.
Rather than following it from Kenya.
Yeah. Great. So I think with that, I'd like to thank you so much for this. I don't know if you have any parting shots for our audience, anything you want to share before we bring this, conversation to an end. And really, I feel like I've learned so much about the telecommunication space in the journey that you've taken to get to where you are today at Baicells.
No, thank you very much for this session. Yeah, it felt nice to recollect on the journey that I have had over the past. I think it's close to 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Incredible.
so it was nice. I remember some of the people that we worked with, and so thanks for the opportunity. And I think for anyone that is watching, I think all I can say is keep working.
The work is necessary.
Yeah, keep working, keep reading, keep improving, and we will all succeed.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, you've heard it from Michael Onyango, one of the most exceptional telecommunications engineers and experts in this space, and somebody who's had a 20-plus year career deploying all the networks that today we take for granted, 3G, 4G, 5G, using on our devices, the internet. These are the people who are the builders, the people who make the networks work, and more importantly, create all the opportunities that we see across Kenya and Africa when it comes to using digital technologies and the internet to achieve what we do. So once again, thank you for joining this edition of Pure Digital Passion. We will catch you in the next one.